Of which, let's invite also David Lipschitz, who's a renewable energy expert, into this conversation. And more than anything else, David, good evening to you. It's also around, how we need to have perhaps an energy mix, which is really coming to the fold once again. It's not necessarily a new conversation, but looks as though plans around gas, for example, solar energy, battery storage is also coming into the fold to increase generation capacity. Obviously, that is under bid window 6. What do you make of what the president has just articulated regarding how is it that we can even rope in renewable energy, which is, as I said, not a new conversation, but perhaps really fast track that mandate so that we can even reach a point of sustainable energy supply in the country?
Thank you and good evening. And I would like to first agree with what your guest has said, that we need a concerted effort to use all of the resources we have. There are obviously a lot of existing people that are advising government, and these are the same people that have been advising government for 20 years, and we're in this mess. I'm not sure that they're directly responsible because they're giving advice and maybe the advice is being taken or not taken. So there's all that background. I think that it's important to understand that renewable energy isn't the only way that we're going to solve our problem. I think we need to have a varied mix. I think the president said, there's going to be an expediting or expedition of getting the renewable energy onto the grid, of getting battery backup onto the grid, of getting embedded generation onto the grid. Sorry, I've been offering to supply electricity to the grid since 2008, and I believe that the private sector, at peak demand in the morning and evening, that whole amount of power can easily be removed from the grid because we can take the whole private sector generation off the grid, because that's not base load. Base load is from smelters, shopping centers, big industry that cannot remove themselves from the grid in a quick way except to run their generators. And interestingly enough, last week I went to see a big manufacturing company in Paarl who've got a 2-megawatt generator, and I went to see them start the generator and watch how it took over from Eskom 10 minutes before load shedding so that they could continue operations without being too severely affected. So I think there's a whole mix of things. I think the feed-in tariff is important, that people are paid appropriately. At the moment in the city of Cape Town, the price has gone up by 8% for buying, and the price has only gone up by 2% for selling, and the tariff ranges have changed so that people who were buying less than 600 kilowatt hours now have to pay more with a higher rate that everyone else pays. So although the city of Cape Town is saying we want energy, they've changed the tariffs in such a way to disincentivize people putting their own systems on the grid. So all of these things have to come together. The government needs to make announcements and then make sure that the tariffs and incentives, correspond and agree with those announcements.
Yeah. Is there anything that gives you hope that for the first time we're going to grapple with the solutions around this power crisis that's been going on for 15 years? Is there anything at all in the measures that are being announced, be it bringing of skills or reducing the Eskom debt or fast-tracking, onboarding of power generation? And anything at all that will give us hope tonight from what the president has said?
I think the main thing is that the government has said a lot of things. And, people say that the policy is bad. I've read the policy. And the 1998 white paper on energy, the 2003 white paper on renewable energy that said 30% of the grid should be in private ownership by 2010. 2010 was 12 years ago. 30% of the grid is not in private ownership. If it was, things may be different. Eskom should, of course, be a strategic part of the grid, and each power station owner should be the general manager and owner of their own power station. I agree with the president that each power station owner should be responsible for his own parts procurement, obviously in line with, if you're going to buy a big generator or part, then make sure that you're buying it, if there are 10 parts needed, that you're not buying one at a time, that you are consolidating your parts orders just like you would do in any big organization. So I think that each production line needs to have its own general manager, but the procurement needs to be expedited. I worry a little bit that environmental concerns will be put on the back seat, and in an environment where we're trying to be more environmentally friendly, more sustainable, energy transition, and so on, we need to not be taking shortcuts whilst moving where we need to go. I think that a lot of private generation can come on board. We heard the other day that there could be as many as 27,000 private generators unregistered on the grid. If the government would do net metering and allow those private people to buy and sell electricity at the same price, or like in the stock market, if the electricity is 3 Rand, the person can buy at 3 Rand 50 and sell at 2 Rand 50. That's okay. At the moment, the person buys at 3 Rand 50 and sells at 50 cents. So there's actually no incentive for someone to cover the entire roof. I mean, for example, on my roof, I've got 6 kilowatts at the moment. I can put 12 or 15 kilowatts on my roof if I'm incentivized to sell to the grid. Now, that capital expenditure is my own expenditure. No one has to pay for that. There's no corruption possibility. You know, there's a huge amount of willingness of people to really come to the party and really want to help. And I think that if the president just does what he said he's going to do tonight, I think everything's going to be great.
Well, we got to help and see, and it's almost like a wait-and-see game to see exactly how that implementation strategy works. So you know that South Africa, I do say that kudos to South Africa, because we always come up with good plans, Prof. The only problem is that we must be able to see those plans actually come into fruition, right? We really need to start honing in terms of how the implementation actually works. We have to leave it there. Thank you very much, energy expert there, David Lipschitz, joining us this evening.